Good afternoon, boys and girls. Today in class, I assigned you to read the story Mahalia Jackson by Julius Lester, illustrated by Lisa Cohen. This genre is expository nonfiction. Expository nonfiction explains what certain things are and how they came to be. As you read, you will notice how the author explains a musical form known as the blues and how it came to be. The question that this story and this author would like you to ask yourself is, how did Mahalia Jackson use the blues in a new and different way? This story is expository fiction and not a biography. We have to always keep that in mind while reading. This story will explain to you what the blues is and how it came to be based on the influence of Mahalia Jackson. So let's think of the main idea and details as we read and keep that in mind. Maybe jot some notes down using post-its as you are reading, because as we are focusing on main idea and details this week, it will really help you when you come to class tomorrow. Please follow along as I read to you. In this selection, the author is talking to his granddaughter. He wants her to know about a kind of music that he loves, the blues. First, he explains that the blues is not just a feeling, it's a kind of music. Then he tells her about a great singer who knew all about the blues. So what are the blues? Well, the blues are like having the flu in your feelings, but instead of your nose being stuffed up, it's your heart that feels like it needs blowing. Everybody gets the blues, even children. But the blues is not only a feeling, it's also a kind of music that cures the blues. The words of a blues song might be sad, but the music and the beat wrap around your heart like one of your grandmother's hugs. The roots of the blues go back to slavery. If anything would give you the blues, it was slavery. Imagine somebody owning you like I own my car. Just like I can sell my car to anybody who has the money. Somebody could sell you and me the same way. One of the ways black people fought against slavery was with the breath in their bodies. They wove hope on the air by singing songs called spirituals, songs for the spirit. Their bodies were in slavery, but it didn't mean their spirits had to be buried in sorrow as white as fog. Slavery ended in 1865, but freedom didn't take its place. The people who had owned the slaves still owned the land. How could the slaves truly be free if they had to keep working for the same people who had owned them? Blues music probably started something like this. Somebody was out in the field working one day. She knew she would be working from sunup to sundown on somebody's farm, making 50 cents a day, until the day she died. Thinking about it made her heart burn as if it had been struck by lightning. The pain was so bad she didn't know what to do. And suddenly she started singing. Got a hurting in my heart, feels like I'm going to die. Got a hurting in my heart, feels like I'm going to die. I feel like a bird whose wings will never fly. Singing just those few words made her feel a little better, and everybody who heard her felt a little better too. Mahalia Jackson, who lived from 1911 to 1972, was not a blues singer. She sang church songs gospel, but she knew blues and brought the blues feeling into church music. Other people like Ray Charles and Aretha Franklin grew up singing gospel too, but they took the gospel feeling and put it into the blues. The words in a gospel song and the words in the blues will be different, but both can make you start moaning like you've just bitten into the best fried chicken anybody ever made. So that's why you have to know about Mahalia Jackson. Even if she didn't sing the blues, she learned a lot from listening to blues singers, and blues singers have learned a lot from listening to her sing gospel. Mahalia grew up in New Orleans, Louisiana, the city where jazz was born and where there is still more good music and good food per block than any place in the world. Her father worked on the docks during the day loading bales of cotton on boats, was a barber at night, and a preacher on Sundays. When Mahalia was 5 years old, her mother died. Her father took her to live with Mahalia Paul, an aunt who lived nearby and the woman for whom Mahalia Jackson was named. Mahalia never lived with her father again, but she saw him almost every day at his barber shop. Mahalia grew up loving music, and the person she wanted to sing like was none other than Bessie Smith. But Mahalia's aunt was very religious, and she took Mahalia to church every day. When talking about her childhood, Mahalia said that in her church, everybody sang and clapped and stomped their feet, sang with their whole bodies. They had the beat, a powerful beat, a rhythm we held on to from slavery days, and the music was so strong and expressive, it used to bring the tears to my eyes. It was in church that Mahalia first started singing. She dropped out of school after the 8th grade and went to work doing people's laundry. Mahalia began hearing stories from relatives and friends about how good life was in Chicago, Illinois. So when she was 16, another aunt, Hannah, took her to Chicago to live. Once there, Mahalia joined a gospel group in a church choir while working during the day as a maid in hotels. It was in Chicago that Mahalia got the chance to see her idol, Bessie Smith, who came to town to put on a show. Years later, Mahalia remembered that Bessie filled the whole place with her voice, and I never went home until they put us out and closed us up for the night. Mahalia's singing brought her to the attention of Thomas A. Dorsey, who directed a number of gospel choirs in Chicago. Dorsey was the father of gospel music, but earlier in his life he had been the pianist for May Rainey, the blues singer Bessie Smith had traveled with. He began taking her to out-of-town churches for concerts, and her reputation began to grow almost as fast as you are. In 1946, Mahalia's first record was released. She would go on to become the most famous gospel singer in the world, and in 1976, she received a Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award. Mahalia was a close friend of Martin Luther King Jr., and at the March on Washington, he asked her to sing right before he gave his famous I Have a Dream speech. Mahalia Jackson had a big voice, and she could go from a high note to a low one as easily as you put one foot in front of the other. She could hold a note until you thought she should run out of breath, and she could put together a lot of notes in a line of music that would take your breath away, and she did it as easily as a cloud floats across the sky. When I was a teenager, I was attending a meeting in Chicago with my church youth group. Mahalia came to our meeting and sang a few songs. I knew who she was, and I'm sorry now that I didn't have sense enough to appreciate listening to one of the greatest singers of the 20th century. I hope you won't make the same mistake if you get a chance to hear some of the great singers of today. Boys and girls, that concludes our story for today. Notice how this story was expository nonfiction. It was a grandfather as a narrator explaining who Mahalia Jackson was and how she influenced the blues industry. So this is not a biography. Although now we are very familiar of who Jackson was, we do know how she influenced music. What I'd like you to do, if you haven't done it already, is please go back into the story and use Post-its to maybe post where you think a detail is or where you think the main idea is. Tomorrow, we will go back into your story and we will look and see what type of main idea and details that you came up with based on your reading. I hope you have a great night, and I hope you enjoyed the story as much as I did. Thank you.